Hello, everybody. This is Angel Ribo with Expansion Network, as you know, accelerating the consciousness of humanity every single day. And today is Friday, and we have, again, another amazing show with Judy Machado called Revealing the New Earth. We've been actually revealing the new Earth for a long time from many different places in the world. And I'm so glad to, again, to say hello, to present you, to say, welcome back to Expansion Network, Judy. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much. It is such an honor always to be here with you, Angel, your beautiful energy, the work that you do in this world. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful that we've come together to bring other glorious, beautiful people into this community to share their incredible stories that are so empowering, so inspiring. And I'm so excited about today and this beautiful guest we have.
Exactly, because we are not inventing the new Earth. Actually, we are revealing it, because there's already people that there's people that are already revealing the new Earth every single day, and they have been doing amazing work. And Judy, obviously, I'm touched. I was reading the work of our guest today, and I was, impressed that you and I could co-host a conversation with her. So feel free to tell us a little bit more about her, the amazing work that she does, and please introduce her to the audience.
Thank you. I have the honor and the privilege of introducing this magnificent woman to all of you today. And I'm going to start by just reminding you what the name of our show is, because it's so beautiful. She is such a beautiful example of what we're doing here today. So it's revealing the new Earth and sharing practical ways to alter your state of living through contribution and service. And this woman is a magnificent example of this. Her story is going to touch your heart and your soul, and it's going to help you to see that we can all make some changes in our world right now, in your own lives, to create a more beautiful world that we know is possible. And that's exactly what she's doing. She's going to inspire us all. And her name is Jana Bell. She is the founder of Amazon Rainforest Conservancy. I've met her a few years ago, and super excited to have you all here and to hear more and more and more of her story. So Jana, how are you doing today?
Oh, wow. What an introduction. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So there's so much beauty and magnificence in your story, because you started off as a traveler to Peru. Tell us about that. You went to Peru, you fell in love with this beautiful land, and then what happened?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, because if you had told me that I would be heading up a Canadian charity doing conservation in the Amazon rainforest, I wouldn't have believed you. You might as well have said to me, Jana, you'll be going to the moon. So it all started in 2011. And a friend of mine was celebrating a milestone birthday, and she wanted to do the trek to Machu Picchu. And at the time, I hadn't even heard about Machu Picchu. I had been a stay-at-home mom for about a decade, and I just needed an adventure. So I said, I'm in. I don't even know where we're going, but I'm in. Then I looked at a map to see where we were going, and I saw that we were right next to the Amazon rainforest. So I phoned my friend and I said, listen, we're never going to be down here again. Can we tack on a quick 3-day visit to an eco lodge I found in the Amazon rainforest? And she said, yeah, sure. So we did. And I'll never forget the first time I stepped off the boat deep in the Amazon to walk up the trail to where we were staying. And I mean, the heat and the humidity, but the noise was incredible. There was macaws screeching, there was monkeys howling, there was insects buzzing, there was butterflies fluttering all around me. And below me on the path, there was leafcutter ants. There were these huge trees that were being strangled by vines that looked like huge snakes. I felt like I was actually on a Hollywood movie set. So I spent 3 days there, and there's something about the Amazon that spoke to me. I don't know what it was. When I came back to Canada from that trip, and I was driving home from the airport, and tears were coming down my face as I realized I felt homesick. I felt homesick for the Amazon, and I knew I had to go back and explore some more. So I went back 3 months later. And this time, my guide wanted to show me what was really going on, not what the tourists see. So I saw firsthand the destruction, and I couldn't believe what we were doing to this beautiful, beautiful rainforest. And I remember in one particular day, he took me to see some illegal loggers who were cutting down this huge tree. It was a magnificent tree. And the chainsaw sliced through this tree in a matter of minutes. And the noise, the cracking it made, it was falling, and the thud it made when it landed on the ground, it was just, I felt like I'd watched a murder. It was horrific. So I came home from this second trip with an overwhelming feeling, I have to get involved. I have a responsibility here. And I looked for a Canadian organization doing conservation in the area that I had visited, and I couldn't find one. And so that's what propelled me to start my own, which is Amazon Rainforest Conservancy.
Wow. So, I mean, this reminds me so much of how many times that I've seen some sort of devastation or issue and thought, how can we help? And you actually took steps, you took action to make this happen. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it's really interesting because I was always a real coward, especially as a kid. I was afraid of dogs and spiders, the jungle gym at school, swimming without my life jacket, although I had swimming lessons, at overnight camp while my friends were horseback riding and zip lining. I was in the craft shack, weaving macrame bracelets. And it took me 5 years to actually drive on the highway after getting my license. So I was a real coward. But I didn't realize that inside there was this inner warrior that was ready to come out once I visited the Amazon rainforest. I can't explain it.
I love that you say that because we host retreats. That's how we met you. We host retreats. I host retreats in Peru. And my very first time in Peru as well, I remember taking off my shoes in the rainforest. We were going through a really big hike and trek. And the locals were saying, whoa, you need to put your shoes back on. You should have your, at least your flip-flops on. Mm-hmm. And I remember something came out of my mouth. I don't know where it came from, but it was like, I just said, it's okay. The animals know I'm here. And it was just this, like, it's like you say, you can't describe it. It was like home. It was like, I don't know, remembering of being, a version of Jane back in the day or something. It's like, we are nature, we are one. And there's something so magical about being in the jungle and in that rainforest. So beautiful. Wow. And then what happened?
So then once I decided I wanted to start an organization in Canada, everybody to make a donation, they all want a tax receipt. So I knew it had to be a charity. And it took me 2 years to convince the Canadian government to issue charitable status. It was the Harper government back then, and they weren't friendly to charities because it takes away from their tax base, especially just someone wanting to do work outside of the country. So I would fill out all these reports and send them to them, and then they'd sit on them for a while, and then they'd come back asking for more information, and this went on back and forth. And so finally a friend of mine said, Jana, you need to go down there, you need to take a camera, you need to show them what's going on. And so that's what I did. I made a short sort of documentary about the devastation that was occurring in the Amazon rainforest, why it matters, what I want to do. And then they issued me charitable status.
Awesome. Wow.
And then I was scared because then I knew I had to do something. You bet. So fortunately, friends and family were very generous and donated some money so I could start the first project. And that was need to find the first parcel of land that we wanted to do conservation. And I knew I wanted it to be pristine, old growth rainforest. A lot of the Amazon has been logged in its secondary rainforest, which is still very important. But for me, there was something about, the old ancient trees. And so I went with a forest engineer to go and check out different parcels of land that were available. And every place we went, I was like, this is it. This is beautiful. And he was like, no, this is not it. It's not special enough. And finally, I had to come back home to Canada, and he continued to look without me. And then one day he called me and he said, I found the piece of land. And he was so emotional because he said he found this huge type of cedar tree, which he thought was extinct. He'd only seen them in books. And he found this land with this huge cedar tree, and it actually had a big red 11 spray painted on it because the owner was planning on chopping it down. He said, this is the land. We have to save this tree. And then he was also excited because he saw the scat and the footprints of a lot of endangered animals like jaguars and tapirs. He saw the path of an anaconda that was going through ponds. He found the den of a giant armadillo. It was just incredible. So that was our first project. We purchased a 616 hectare Brazil nut concession. Wow. And the other thing about it is it had over 200 Brazil nut trees on it. And Brazil nut trees are the giants of the rainforest. They tower over all the other trees. I mean, the amount of carbon that they store is incredible. So that was our first project.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. Obviously, again, welcome to Expansion Network, Jana. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, which are the first one, just to give the audience a little bit of a timeline. Since the very first time that you went to Peru until you bought the first piece of land, you said that it took to you like 2 years to get the charity up and running because of this, restrictions of the Canadian government. But also, that's the first question, like a little bit of a timeline. The second thing is, so actually your charity owns those, you said 500, 600 hectares. So that's the deal.
Okay, so that project, that land in that area, the government actually owns. So you can't buy it privately, but what you do is you buy the title of it.
Okay.
So the government, and that works because the government can't protect it. And it's an agreement for 40 years, and then the agreement is renewed as long as you do what you say you're doing. So that's the answer to that question. But the future projects we're looking at actually in an area where we can actually buy land and own it outright.
And when did you go to Peru for the first time?
So the first time I went to Peru was 2011. Got charitable status in 2014. Then had to raise the money and find the land and make that happen. And that ended up being 2016. So it's a long process.
Wow. And so tell us, because I follow your story. Obviously, we have a beautiful brand and we donate a percentage of our sales for the cacao to you and your beautiful work, your magnificent work. And there's so many projects that, especially recently, over the last few years, has been a big change, obviously, globally for many of us in many ways. And it's created an incredible opportunity to find some new land and some new opportunities too. Tell us about those, because I'm so excited about, especially the jaguars.
Yes. So yeah, COVID, for 2 years with COVID, there was travel restrictions in Peru. You couldn't travel by car, by boat. You could only leave your house for an hour, a couple of times a day to get food. So we weren't able to do much at all. It was really frustrating. But now that restrictions have been lifted, we've got these new projects we want to do. And one of them I'm so excited about. It's in the valley between two mountain ranges. And we want to create a wildlife corridor, in particular for jaguars, because there's only 15,000 jaguars left in the wild, and their last refuge is in the Amazon.
Wow.
So in this valley, there's about 150 families, and they're all cattle ranchers. And the issue is when the jaguars come down from one mountain range, they have to pass through the valley to get to the other mountain range. And the ranchers shoot them on sight because they see them as a threat to their cattle. So what we want to do is create basically a corridor, a safe passage for these jaguars and other wildlife. And this actually, there's a really interesting story about this valley, because prior to being cattle ranchers, everybody there was growing coca.
Yes.
And coca in its natural state is not dangerous. And it's a very important leaf for the indigenous people there. They chew on it all day because it's a mild stimulant, and it helps take away your appetite and gives you some, like caffeine gives you a little energy, because it's hard work. They use it in celebrations, marriages and the birth of babies. They trade coca. It's only when it's actually processed and chemically processed with chemicals that then turn into cocaine that it becomes a dangerous a product. The problem is in the 1970s, everyone in the valley started growing coca just for cocaine production, because they were able to make a lot of money. And in the 1980s, when the US government decided to launch a war on drugs in Latin America, they sponsored the Peruvian Army or Navy, Air Force, sorry, to take out their airplanes and spray all the coca fields with chemicals to destroy them. So everybody in this valley, all their coca was destroyed. And then the Peruvian government gave them a choice. They said, you can either have one cow or we'll give you enough cacao plants to cover 1 hectare. And the majority of everyone in the valley chose to have the 1 cow. So then this whole valley became grasslands for the cattle to graze. So, and that caused a huge habitat fragmentation for all the wildlife there. So the good news is now a lot of these cattle ranchers are older and their children aren't interested in continuing on. They want to live in the towns and work in the towns. And so this is a great opportunity for to actually purchase land from these cattle ranchers who want to retire, and we can reforest it and we can create a whole conservation corridor here.
That's amazing. I mean, I was just trying to picture what you were describing, and it's incredible. So my question is, but who do you have, like, on site? I mean, you have a crew, you have a set of volunteers, you have people working for your charity. How does that work? Because I have some friends that have some hectares back in Europe. And when you mention the number of hectares, I mean, guys, this is a huge, massive piece of land. Don't think this is a small, and obviously it's in the Amazon, right? So this is like incredible. It's not like just you go there and you put some fences and it's your land. No, that's not how it works, guys. Right?
No.
So could you explain, so the mortals that probably have never been able to visit the Amazon or maybe Peru can have a grasp an idea of what that really entails, Jana?
For sure. So we have a management team in Canada and in Peru, and the management team in Canada is all volunteers. So we ensure that all donations go directly to our projects in Peru. And then our management team in Peru, we also partner with local conservation organizations that have proven to be very respectful and know what they're doing. And then the key thing, exactly what you're saying, it's not enough to acquire land, you have to protect it. So forest rangers are really, really important to have on any land.
To protect the land, to make sure no one's coming
in. Keep out invaders, yep.
Oh my God, absolutely. It's incredible. And, we have some mutual friends who I host retreats in Peru, and a beautiful sister, I call her, who co-hosts with me in Peru. She's been in touch with you, and there's been so many serendipitous, beautiful findings that have happened since. And that just reminds me so much of when we're doing good work, when we're doing work that is, of the greater good, for the greater good, of service to humanity, these opportunities show up, right? These things just show up. And I remember on our last retreat, we saw, Jana was not with us on this retreat. We were hosting a retreat, and we met some other people who were talking about conservation and all these beautiful plans. And then we came back and connected Jana with them. And it just started this incredible, other beautiful, I have goosebumps even thinking about this is what life is all about, right? When we're in service, when we're flowing, the universe just presents to us that next opportunity to help, to serve at an even, larger scale, which is exactly what I see you're doing. It's just, we're helping at a larger scale. It's like, as we move forward every year, there's more opportunities to support. And, I often, people might be listening thinking, well, that's great that she's doing that. How can I support? What can I do? What would you say to that?
I guess there's 3 suggestions I have when people ask me what they can do. One of them is to shop carefully. So know where your products are coming from, that they're not harming the Amazon. The other one is we need to pressure governments and corporations to take account not only economics, but the health of the environment. And then, of course, supporting organizations like ARC that are on the ground doing the work, and supporting them by sharing their information and donating if you're in a financial position to do so.
That's so beautiful. And, you know, it's reminding me now, I know we're kind of sort of all over the place, but I'm reminded right now of the work, you're doing some work for children as well now, aren't you? Is there something?
So yes, one of our platforms is education.
Yes.
So yeah, we do conservation, and education is another really important platform of ours. And we actually launched an online education platform during COVID called Earth, which is environmental activities, rainforest teachings in the Amazon. Did I say that right? So, and the Earth is all about teaching the next generation about the natural world, in particular the Amazon rainforest. And we've got videos and stories and activities for all different age groups on different topics. We want to inspire the passion to protect the natural world.
And to bring these younger generations in to learn. It's so incredible how removed so many younger generations are to their food, to the vegetables we grow, to animals even. It's beautiful that you have this educational platform and pillar. It's so beautiful. I remember looking at it thinking, wow, how much are you doing? It's so incredible. You're like on the land, you have groups of people who are taking care of the land. You're helping to educate to people, to donate, to see how we can support the land. You're creating these beautiful other platforms. It's so inspiring to me.
We also want to start educating the people who live in the rainforest, because a lot of them, they're not educated. Most of them can't read or write. They think the whole world is the Amazon. So, you know, if you cut down a huge swath of trees, it doesn't matter. It just goes on and on and on and on. And even more importantly, now that all these roads are being built, highways and roads are being built, all these people from the Andes are coming down to the rainforest looking for a better way of life. And the people from the Andes don't have any understanding about the rainforest. So they don't understand the impact they're having. And in fact, the last trip I was on, I drove by this area because we were looking at other areas to do projects. And there was this whole area that a community had chopped down all the trees and burnt them. And what they didn't realize, I mean, it's awful that they did that, but what they didn't even realize is the trees that they burned were so valuable that they could have actually had sold them for a lot of money, but they just burned them. So yeah, a lot of it is about, and the other interesting thing in Peru, it just blows my mind, all the new information I get every time I go down there. The children in Peru who are at school, they learn about animals in Africa. They learn about elephants and giraffes. And it's like, they need to learn about the animals in the Amazon where they live. It's such a disconnect.
Wow.
It's incredible that you describe this, because obviously these people have lived there. Their perspective of the world is what they have around, right? So that's what they have learned. They have grown up. They have grown up seeing just this. So how do you actually? Because probably they also speak some local languages. Maybe they are part of, as you said before. You know, they first were like growing coca, and now they were given the chance to grow maybe cacao or to have a cow, and most of them chose the cow. How do you actually communicate with them? How open are they to embrace, you know, your initiatives and your philosophy, right? Because you have a perspective of the world completely different to theirs, right?
Yes, and that's exactly why that kind of information can't come from us, from me up in Canada coming down and saying you need to do this and you need to do that. That's where our Peruvian partners really do all the work for us, because they know that they have to establish trust and a sense of connection with the community before the communities are interested in listening to what they have to say and partnering with them. But it's actually really interesting now. So one of the trips I went to about a year ago, we were invited by this very remote community of coffee growers, way high up in the mountains. It took us planes and drive. It took us like 2 days to get there and walking. Anyhow, they heard about us through somebody and invited us to come in to talk to them, because they realized in their forests, there was no more animals. They had killed them all, either to eat them or they destroyed the habitat. So there's communities that are starting to realize, we got a problem here. We don't know what to do. And so they actually invited us there and said, can you help us? Because we want to have a big conservation area. And also we want some help with our growing our coffee in a more sustainable way. So that's the nice thing. There are communities there that are starting to realize, yikes, we got to make some changes here. And they're open to outside help.
Wow.
We started with Judy, probably what is it now, 2 years ago. We started talking to people in the world to see what was going on in the world, and literally many different countries in the world and continents. And at that time, Judy was actually, in many different areas in the world, in some, for a few months. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because to put Peru, I mean, I personally, traveled and worked in many different Latin American countries, and I personally followed the restrictions of Peru, specifically of Peru. I have a few friends in Peru, and Peru has been one of the countries in Latin America that has had the most restrictions. It was really tough. I mean, really, really, really tough to be in Peru. So that's why when I was asking you about the timeline, definitely it was a difference between this 2016, right, where you started to have the title of that particular land up until 2020, and suddenly, literally, the country shut down. When you were mentioning those, you could get out of home only for 1 hour, maybe 2 hours a day, etc. So my question is, number one, how easy was it for you to get the title, to actually purchase or have earned the rights to that land in the first place? And then second, how difficult it has been for you the last 2 years and a half to actually go back and make sure that whatever you started to do in 2016 was still being done meanwhile?
So once we found that the Brazil nut concession we wanted to purchase, I mean, that was a nightmare, because in Peru, there's so much corruption, and everyone there knows that laws are meant to be broken, including policemen and politicians. Money is what talks. So to do all the paperwork in the government office, our paperwork kept going to the bottom of the pile because we weren't paying bribes. And so it was such a long process. I think it took about 2 years to finally get the title in our name. And then with the government lockdowns in 2020, we were forced to evacuate from our land because we couldn't stay there. And then while we were gone, all these illegal miners and loggers invaded that area because it was so remote and they could work with impunity. And the government wasn't even interested in what was going on out there. They're just trying to deal with the health issues in the major cities. So we haven't been there since the end of 2019. But now we're really excited because restrictions have been lifted. I'm rebuilding my team down there. We are buying a boat and motor again because our boat and motor, disappeared during the pandemic. And we're going to go back and we're reclaiming our land. So we're really excited about that. And we're really further fueled because there's a report from the Smithsonian Institute who highlighted this particular area where our Brazil nut concession is as a key area needing protection, a key corridor in this area of Madre de Dios. And as far as I know, we are the only conservation organization in this area because it is so remote. It takes about a day and a half to get there by boat. And there was a huge illegal mining camp about an hour from the main town pre-COVID that the government went in finally. There's probably 30,000 miners in there. Wow. And they went in there and they destroyed it. They set things on fire. They burnt down the camp. They destroyed the machinery. But all that did was disperse the miners into more remote areas. And one of them being the area we are. So the whole landscape has changed from when we first purchased the land, where there was just, a few of the Brazil nut harvesters were supplementing the income by doing a little mining on their land. Now it's just crawling with illegal gold miners. And pre-COVID, we were taking GPS locations and bringing them back to the environmental police to say, look, you guys got to come up here and here's where they are. And they wouldn't come. And the reason they wouldn't come is because they didn't want to stay overnight in the jungle. So it was really frustrating. I think if we paid them a huge sum of money, they would come up. But then COVID hit and everything just stalled. So now we're restarting that project, and I'll have lots more stories to come.
Wow. And, even just now you saying the name of the town, the village, Madre de Dios, right? Which translates to Mother of God, right? Isn't that, this is the magnitude of the work that you're doing, that we're all doing, whoever's listening, whoever's able to contribute and support, is we are reclaiming our Mother Earth, this magnificent, earth that keeps us alive. And I'm actually getting a little emotional thinking about how important it is, this work. And I'm so grateful for you.
Well, Judy, I got to thank you, because one of the projects that we want to launch this year is all because of you pointing it out to us and Gerbine about in Gokta Falls.
Such a magnificent village.
What a magical place. What a magical place. So Gokta Falls, or the town of Kukuchima, is really interesting because it's where the Amazon rainforest meets the Andes. So it's a unique combination of forests and peat bogs and mountains. And there's all these endemic species living there, meaning species that live nowhere else. So it's a really incredible area. And the really interesting thing about this area is it was very remote from the rest of Peru. There was no roads, and it was very, very poor, and not the nicest area. The women would get beaten all the time. In fact, the women weren't even allowed to eat with the men at the table. The women would be sitting outside on a stoop, and the men would be inside at the table eating the supper. So it was a really kind of not the greatest place, but it had this beautiful waterfall that was discovered by this German explorer in 2006. And he came back and he showed the world pictures and stories of this beautiful place with this beautiful, beautiful falls. And then that changed everything. So developers are looking at this area now as a major tourist destination, sort of the next Machu Picchu. And so all these roads have gone in, and there's plans to build huge condos and resorts. And all the people there now have all this money because they're selling all the land they have. And all these wealthy people from Lima are building houses there. It's changing the whole area. And I'm so glad that Judy mentioned it to us, because we went to visit the area to see what she was talking about. And we were astounded by what we saw, how beautiful it is, how special it is, how it does need protection, because all the communities in the valleys below rely on the water, this clean water. So we really wanted to work with the community there about sustainable tourism and making sure waterway protection and creating a conservation corridor in this area, so it doesn't become like Niagara Falls in Canada, for instance. So that's a really exciting project that we're also hoping to launch in 2022. And that's all because we were introduced by it through you, Judy.
Well, you know what's so, again, I go back to the serendipitous ways that the universe brings things to us, right? Here we were hosting a beautiful retreat, and this magnificent woman by the name of Gerbine was on this retreat, and we were in Gokta. We do retreats in Gokta Falls as well as in Tarapoto. And in Gokta, the bottom of the waterfalls, there's the big waterfall that you're referring to. There's also 18 waterfalls along this massive cliff. And we were working with a beautiful shaman who took us into 3 of the waterfalls, which had like just incredible energetic portals. It was just a magnificent retreat, working with the shaman, living with the shaman for 10 days. And Gerbine was with us, and we were able to experience some of the eco lodges in the area. So some of the newer places, but are very much focused around protecting the land as well. Yes. And one of them was talking about this, this water and this whole, like, we have to protect this land. And Gerbine was just like, oh my God, I'm going to go back home and I'm going to see if I can start a charity. And she got very excited. And when we came back to Toronto, we just thought, well, why recreate something when Jana, this is going to be, we can all do this together, collaborate together and just share. And that's when we put you in touch with them, instead of, imagine Gerbine now having to start a charity and years later in the same process you just described, when this is what we're creating, is this, how do we more efficiently and through beautiful collaboration and connection support and create solutions for the biggest problems in the world. And this was a beautiful example of that. And I'm so, so grateful. And I hear you've been back several times since, and I hear you come back, and I'm so excited to one day join you in one of your trips deep in the rainforest to continue to see the conservation. And for now, I'm super excited about just supporting you in whatever other ways I can, which is so beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm so excited about is our first project is Lower Amazon, the Jaguar Corridor project. That's cloud forest, and this is the headwaters. So it's 3 different regions of the Amazon, meaning we can protect different variety of flora and fauna species. So yeah, it's really, really exciting.
Oh, see how it all came together. It's like the pieces of the puzzle, the 3, the trio, it's so beautiful. Wow. And now I'm being reminded of a couple of things. I'd love for you to share this story. I remember you telling a story, and I don't remember the details, but you'll share it now, where you were all going very deep into walking through the jungle and had to do with a marker. I wonder if you remember that story.
Oh gosh.
Oh my goodness. I don't want to do that, but yes. that was like, wow.
So, okay. So in the area where we have our first project, well, I should say there's probably between a few hundred and a few thousand people who live in voluntary isolation in the Amazon rainforest. And these are people that have chosen to remain completely cut off from the rest of the world. And in this particular area, there's a tribe called the Yane people. And we don't know much about them, but we do know that they are nomadic hunters. And in the dry season, they camp on the riverbanks to eat turtle eggs. In the rainy seasons, they're traveling through the rainforest. They're not great swimmers, but they are amazing at climbing trees. And at first, the government said that they didn't exist until some researchers went in and actually got some physical proof showing that they are there. And everybody who grew up in the Amazon knew they were there, because a friend of mine said, yeah, they would go camping, and what the people in the uncontacted tribes would do would start to make animal noises to scare them away. And that's what's really interesting, is that mostly about them because of presence of signs that they make or sounds that they make. So anyhow, going back to, I think this was 2017, and I was still in Canada, but we had 4 researchers at our land doing an inventory of the flora and fauna that were there. And they split up into 2 teams of 2, and they would go off separate ways. And then at the end of the day, come back together to the camp. And one of the teams came back and realized that they lost their Sharpie marker, those Sharpies. And they're like, oh shoot, we lost our Sharpie marker. That's kind of sucks, but whatever. And anyway, they went back out the next day along the trail that they had made, and they were walking for quite a bit. And all of a sudden they saw something ahead of them, and they looked, and there was this vine hanging down from the tree. And at the end of the vine was the Sharpie marker tied to it.
Oh God. Wow.
They realized that they were being watched. And yeah, it really freaked them out, of course. And it would have been probably women with children, because if it had been males, they probably, it would have been something a little more aggressive and violent. But yeah, that really, really shook them.
Wow. And again, it takes me back to the work that you're doing and the people on the ground are doing for this beautiful cause. It's hard work. It's beautiful work. And there's so much involved. And it's incredible. It's just, it's beautiful to acknowledge these communities, these indigenous families, these tribes that are still there as caretakers of Mother Earth and the rainforest and the land. So beautiful.
And that's one of the things that the indigenous communities are really struggling with, because a lot of them want to stay and have that traditional way of life. But then there's others that are lured by, you know, money and the luxuries that we have in the Western world. So it's sort of, and then these companies are coming in and saying, we'll give you a lot of money if you give us your land. So it's a really challenging time, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah. Angel, you look like you had something to say. Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you. So again, as the word serendipity that Judy has mentioned already a few times, I remember when I'm originally from Spain in Europe. I remember when I first flew I relocated from Europe to Latin America. This, in my case, it was in Mexico. And I remember how the drivers of the society were completely different to the European society. Then, much more recently, in 2017, we launched Wisdom for Kids, which is a charity. We go to indigenous communities all the time in Mexico. And it's so funny how there are so many things that you are describing that we have actually seen with Wisdom for Kids. When we go to indigenous communities, there's always these people that want to keep their origin and their traditions and their culture. But there's also people, obviously, that they want to have their cell phones, they want to have their computers, they want to blah, 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 you name it. But also we have to be very respectful, because many indigenous communities are actually literally funded by, drug cartels that won the coca, right? And many other plants. And we have to respect that, because that's part of the community. We just go there, we help the kids in our case. But after what you were saying and you were describing, these three different areas, you're learning so much. And I'm going to ask you a very provocative question, if I may, Jana. I'm asking you for permission.
No, what if I say no?
Before I throw it to you, and obviously yes. you have a great ally at Judy with Judy. And I was listening to that story about the miners. It's very clear to me that you are there to solve that, because you have 30,000 souls that probably they could eventually become your allies somehow. The thing is, what can they do to help you, to help the community? Because what happens in these areas in Latin America that I know and what we all know, is that you actually become the real engine, the real change of the community, because the government is not interested. It's too complicated. They don't want to stay overnight. Come on, give me a break, right? They don't want to stay overnight, but you know so much, and you already have all this input. You have all those experiences, and you have a very clear understanding what you want to do, but you need the local communities. What about, literally becoming like the social, economic, driver of this entire communities, or this number of communities, trying to involve everybody to become part of the solution, as opposed to becoming part of the problem? Is that too pretentious from my side to ask you that question, Jana?
No, you're absolutely right. We can't do anything unless we have partnership with the people that live down there, and agreement. And that's why we have to be very particular what projects. I mean, our first project, we didn't even consider that. We just saw this incredible piece of land and we went for it. But now with project going further, in order for them to be successful, we realize we have to partnership with a local Peruvian community, local Peruvian organization, nonprofit organization. And we also have to have the support and partnership of the local community. Otherwise the projects won't work. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people that go in there with projects, and this are going to do this and that, but then they don't have the support, and then they end up leaving. So a lot of people didn't pay any attention to me when I first started down there. I was like, here I am, everybody. And all the other conservation groups were like, yeah, she won't last, because they've seen so many people come, fail, and leave. And now that I've been down there, since 2014, almost 10 years, wow. They're starting to say, hey, you're still here.
Wow.
So you're becoming like the think tank of those areas. You know what I mean? Because it's social impact, it's economic impact. It's like also showing the world how things can be done differently. It's also, there's so many edges here. There's so many ways, yes. So many, viewpoints here, Jana.
And there's not one solution. Each solution has to be tailored to that community. So for instance, in the Jaguar corridor, our partner there, our Peruvian partner, has built this most beautiful eco lodge. And so they're hiring people from the community to work at the Eco Lodge. And then we are going to hire people from the community for our forest ranger program. And we're also going to work with anyone in the valley that wants to stay there. I have this, I've been dying to do a vanilla project. I'm really excited about vanilla. It's such a high value. It's in short supply. It's in high value. And I actually went and met with somebody who grows vanilla in a lab down there, because vanilla is amazing. It can grow on the tree trunks of things. It can even grow on cacao trees. So you don't need to clear land. It just grows under trees. And the reason there's not much vanilla in the world is it's very, very labor intensive, but then that creates wonderful jobs. So that's something I'm excited about. And in the Gokta Falls area, that's more about focusing the community on tourism. And so right now, Judy was talking about when they walk to the bottom of the falls. That's all now, it's cement. I don't know, Judy, if it was like that when you were there, but it's a huge cement path. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Yeah, but the good thing is the Gokta Falls is actually 2 levels of falls. So what we're saying to the Tourism Association is, you guys can have that as your Disneyland down there. We'll stay away, that's yours. But what we'd like to do with you is have a different path along the second falls. And for that will be pristine, wild. We could have a spot where people can camp if they want, but there'll be no buildings, and we'll keep that wild. But you can still have an income because, you can ask people for an entrance fee. You can have camping fees. Like, there's still a way to make money without turning it into a Disneyland.
Wow. And you know what? Near Gokta Falls, there's an area up on a very high hill called Quaylap, which is 1,000 years older than Machu Picchu, if you can imagine. 1,000 years older. And they discovered that only, I don't know how many years ago. And they're also preparing that for tourism and the gondola and all that crazy stuff. But I remember when we did our trek in Gokta, at the bottom of the falls, going to the other falls, we would occasionally see one of these homes, which are round. The homes in Quaylap were round structure. And there's a beautiful story around why they believe that was, because they believe it was a female who sort of began that village, and the feminine energy and the circles. But we were walking down in Gokta through the waterfalls, and occasionally we would see one of these beautiful, 1,000 years older than Machu Picchu. And like, that's how raw it is. We're walking by it. You could see it. You could sit on it if you wanted to. And our beautiful shaman was saying his dream was to spend a whole month and to go deep into the rainforest there, because we were just along the cliff where the waterfalls were. Because if there's one house there, imagine what's further deep. Like, I mean, there's so much to be discovered in terms of just the history and the honoring, and it's so beautiful. The protection, right? The protection versus paving. I mean, that's crazy, paving that land. And back to your question, Angel, about, maybe is there a way where we can all sort of work together? Is that part of the vision? And I really feel like we are living in such a significant time right now in humanity. There is such a significant shift in consciousness happening right now. We know that. And how beautiful to hold this vision where, these beautiful indigenous who are living there voluntarily, who might, see you and others as maybe the enemy potentially, but somehow consciousness rising and expanding to a place where there is an understanding that we're all here to help one another, that some of us right now are here to help one another. And in coming together to make that, I really do believe that this is a significant time, and we're going to see more and more of that. And it's so, so beautiful. I wonder, one last question before we wrap up. Can you tell us one of the scariest moments while being down there? Because I've seen you with holding some incredible animals, and, share with us something really interesting, an interesting story about that.
Oh gosh. Well, I've been fortunate that I have never been bitten by a snake or gotten a jungle disease or stepped on a stingray like some of my colleagues have.
Yes.
I've been very fortunate. I guess, the scariest story, of course, isn't anything to do with animals, it's to do with humans for me. I went down there during COVID, and the town where we had our office is called Porto Maldonado, and we had a house office on this little that we rented on this beautiful off this beautiful road, and I always felt so safe down there. Anyhow, I came down, and one of my partners was coming from I think from Mexico. He was living in Mexico at the time to meet me. Well, wouldn't you know, he tested positive for COVID. So I was there, and then my other our director of operations said to me, well, we have to wait for Matthew to come, because he was sure it was a false positive, and it turned out it was. His next test was fine, and he came down, but it was going to take him a couple of days to get that test results and book a flight. And so that my director of operations at the time said, well, I'm going to go, I have another project in the jungle. I'm not going to just sit here and wait for him to come. So I'm going to go and do that project, and you can wait here at the house. And he said, but you can't go out, because things are so desperate now because of COVID. Because everything, all these people who had restaurants or, were selling things at the side of the road, all that was gone. There was no way to make money. People were desperate. So he said, you can't leave for 3 days. You just have to stay in the house. And it had a gate around it and a little lock. And so I was like, you can't leave me by myself. Like, and he's like, yeah, I am. And I'm like, well, okay, but like, at least take me to the grocery store first. So we went to the grocery store. I bought a big bottle of rum.
Yes.
And then I just stayed there and didn't leave for 3 days, and boy, when Matthew showed up, was I ever happy.
Wow. I can't imagine. And especially at night, right? Like you say, all the animals, all the sounds. Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. Wow, Jana.
Very cool. Have you thought of writing a book, Jana?
Oh, you know what? I really should start writing down my stories. Yes, I really should.
Have you thought of a title?
No.
Okay, good. All right. So we can actually suggest a few titles.
Yes, please.
Judy.
Yes.
No, I mean, maybe not now, but definitely, I mean, there's so many stories and so many things that you can talk about that I think it's going to be a bestseller. So
with the proceeds going to the charity, that's such a wonderful idea. I better, as soon as we finish our conversations, I'm going to start writing.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
If people would like to know more about you and about your project, what's the best way to connect with you, Jana?
So we have a website, arconservancy.com. We're also on social media, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. And now we have a TikTok channel, because TikTok's a new thing. Because what I'm doing now is each time I go down, I have a wonderful cameraman who comes down with me, and we film little snippets, little stories, so that I can share with people back in Canada and around the world, just to get people interested and educate them a little bit and maybe inspire them to get involved. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Wow.
Excellent. Judy, all yours.
Jana, thank you so much. I would love, if it is okay, that we just have a little cacao blessing right now. The cacao is such a beautiful spirit, as are so many other beautiful teacher master plant medicines. And just before I drink the cacao, we can just all together just send so much love to you, Jana, to all of the crew, everyone who's doing the work to support and to help Mother Earth, the lungs of our land, the rainforests. And I just wanted, through this beautiful spirit, this beautiful cacao spirit, to just acknowledge and honor all of the indigenous, all of our beautiful families on the land, the caretakers, especially of our beautiful plant medicines, of our trees, and just send so much love to each and every one of you who are listening to this. And just remember that, we all matter. However small we might think the next step is. This is a beautiful example of Jana just coming back and not being sure, and would never have believed that she could do the magnitude that she's been able to create. And yet it was just one little step at a time. Thank you so much to these beautiful plant medicines that are opening up our hearts right now, coming out of the jungle faster than ever before, into our homes, so we can drink them every day and connect to this incredible, magnificent spirit and consciousness, to open up our hearts, to bring more compassion into our life, to love one another, and to have fun, and to serve one another. So thank you so much, Jana, for you Thank you, Angel, for your beautiful magnificence as well and everything that you do. It is such an honor and such a joy to be here today talking to both of you. Thank you for everything. Thank you to everyone who's on here. We love you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you very much, Jana, for being with us today. I'm sure that all the audience of Expansion Network has enjoyed this conversation, has enjoyed all your stories. And we will all be looking at, what you guys do. Amazing job. Thank you so much for accepting our invite and to be here today.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot of fun. And thank you to both for everything you're doing too. I mean, what an incredible, service that you guys are doing as well to our Mother Earth.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Obviously, it's been a pleasure to co-host again with you. So let's have the divine bless you and your projects and your lives. And for the rest of the audience, thank you very much for being with us today. I'm sure that you have enjoyed our conversation as much as we have. We really thank you for being here. And within a month, we're going to have another conversation, another show, revealing the new Earth. Thank you so much, Judy, for doing this every day. And again, thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of this Friday and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.